Hey everybody, welcome into Redacted on this Monday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we don't suffer fools, and we try to navigate this crazy clown world together, covering the stories the mainstream media largely ignores. And right now, the White House is in full panic mode, trying to label everything that has happened with President Biden over the past few days as disinformation. If you've seen him wandering around the yard, that's disinformation. If you've seen him being led off the stage by President Obama, that's disinformation. And we got some breaking news just a short time ago that, yes, a Biden replacement is in the works, and that could happen in the next couple of weeks before the 2024 election.
We're also going to talk about why taxpayers in Maine are paying for more and more drugs for addicts. They think they're doing it in a compassionate way, but I'm going to show you something kind of gross. So if you're eating, finish that up before we get to my segment. That's after Clayton's segment. Also, we have a first-time redacted guest on the show today, Viva Fry, from the eponymously named, I guess, would we use that word?
Yeah.
YouTube channel. He is a lawyer. He is a Canadian expat. He lives in Florida. He has always some of the best breakdowns of legal issues and politics that just a fellow channel that I really like a lot. So we invited him on the show, and he has been gracious enough to accept.
So
we're going to talk about, yes. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about why the Justice Department is not investigating themselves. Merrick Garland refused to show tapes of the Biden interview around the classified documents investigation. That's funny, right? Why can Congress not make him? Well, the Justice Department says, we're not going to enforce that. So it's so funny when you investigate yourself and find that you're all good.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. When you come to me with a complaint, I'm just going to say, you know what? I looked into it. Everything was fine. Everything fine. It was checked out. I'm going to use the Merrick Garland defense from now on. That's what I'm going to do. Also, I know that says Poland fights back, but we're not going to be talking about Poland. We are going to be talking about Canada fighting back over the past weekend, fighting back against this LGBTQ plus agenda, keeping our hands off the children. But Justin Trudeau, meanwhile, this was happening in Canada while Justin Trudeau is making a total fool of himself over at the G7.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk about all of those pieces and so much more on tonight's show. So welcome in, welcome in. Good to see all of you guys tonight. And yes, we are in the process of sort of tearing down our studio or working on a brand new studio. And all of this is sort of up and running and being built at the moment. But everything looks good. And but you'll notice
everything's fine.
Everything's
You're telling
fine.
yourself that.
Well, the whole team is texting right now because there's been all sorts of problems with YouTube today and who knows what's going on. And anyway, but right here behind us now, this is all sort of torn down. So we're getting our new studio built up, and you'll notice like this is being torn down, and over the next 48 hours, anyway, the next few days will be our last sort of live shows in the studio, and we'll be moving on.
Yes, it's one of those examples of the best laid plans, because we had planned to finish the show with live shows, finish the week with live shows, and then movers come, life happens. So the live shows, I just want to let you know, will be today and tomorrow, and then we will have content for you. So stick with us over at Redacted. Make sure you have the bell notification on so you see when we have new videos, because we will be taking some time off and we'll really miss you in the live show, but we'll see it in the comments. We'll be around.
All right, we got a lot of news to get to. We're going to get to this Biden story here in a second. The White House in full panic mode. But today's show, we want to tell you, is brought to you by our friends over at Lear Capital. And right now, we now know that there will be priced in at least one rate cut this year. That is, of course, going to be bad news for the U.S. dollar. That will be great news for gold. So they're going to be slashing rates. Then people will be ditching U.S. Treasuries once again. And this, of course, will see a rise likely in gold and silver prices. And our friends at Lear Capital can help you get set up actually purchasing right now gold and silver sent right to your house. And they have a brand new de-dollarization report. You should all go and grab it. Go to learredacted.com and pick it up and read it. It's totally free. I would just encourage all of you guys to read it so you understand what's happening right now with the US dollar. Like if you're kind of somewhat tuned in, maybe you're kind of tuned out, you don't understand what's happening overall with how these countries are moving away from the US dollar. forgetting even what it means for the U.S. government, what does it mean for you and your family to understand this? So go grab that free report at LearRedacted.com. But Lear can help you get set up buying precious metals, gold and silver, right inside of your house. Natalie and I are big proponents of adding gold and silver to our portfolio. So go here. You can call their 800 number. It's right here on your screen. It's 1-800-613-3557. Write that down. 1-800-613-3557 for your free guide, or go to LearRedacted.com.
Mr. Garrow in the chat says, will the new studio be in a bomb shelter? It's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
Considered it.
Yeah, get some iodine. Stock up on some iodine as NATO pushes us towards World War III. Yeah, that is definitely in the cards. I mean, how do you prepare for like nuclear attacks? You know, Russia fully equipped with massive shelter systems.
Yes.
And the citizens there have plans in place for full shelter systems.
Right.
The United States does not. Like, can any of you right now tell me in your community that you have like some sort of a plan that's been given to you by your community? Like, this is what we do in case of this? No. But Russia does.
John Campbell told me to get iodine, so I did that.
So
that's all I've done. And just today, NATO chief Jen Stoltenberg said, well, we're so happy now in NATO, we need to have our nuclear weapons everywhere. And that's awesome, you know, like in every NATO country. Also, you should be so glad that NATO has what he calls nuclear transparency. So before, NATO used to do their nuclear drills in silence, right? Mm-hmm. Now we do it all out in the open. Isn't it great we have transparent society? So they're trying to present themselves to you as like, we're on the up and up.
Yeah.
Yes, we're calling for nuclear war, but we're doing it in front of your face.
That's right.
I remember like in school, what we got was like, get under the desk. Are we still there? And then New York, to be fair, they did put out a video on what to do.
Yeah. What to do in case of a nuclear attack. Yeah.
It was like, stay inside.
It was stay away from a window.
And pay attention to social media for updates, because the internet's still going to be on.
Yes.
Go to TikTok for updates. Well, all right, let's get to this. President Biden will be replaced on the Democratic ticket. We now have confirmation from a member of Congress and an exclusive report from the Daily Mail confirming this news. Biden will be replaced very soon. We're going to get into those details here in a second. But first, the White House in full panic mode, and here's why. Watch.
CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton is with us. So where does the race stand among African-American voters right now?
Yeah, I keep looking for this to change, to go back to a historical norm, and it simply put has not yet. So this is the margin, or Biden and Trump among black voters, compare where we were at this point in 2020, compare where we are now. You know, at this point, look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African-American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards a historic performance for a Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
And when you dig into this number here, what is the makeup of that number?
This is where we get very interesting. So I decided to dive deeper into the crosstabs, figure out where is it that Joe Biden is truly struggling among black voters. All right, so this is black voters, Biden versus Trump margin. Look at black voters age 50 and older, and you'll see, look, Joe Biden was leading amongst this group at this point by 83 points back in 2020. Now it's 74 points. So, yeah, a slight decline in that margin, but nothing out of this world. Look at black voters under the age of 50. Holy cow, folks. Holy cow. Look at this. Joe Biden was up by 80 points among this group back at this point in 2020. Look at where that margin has careened down towards. It's now just, get this, 37 points. That lead has dropped by more than half, Mr. Berman. I just never seen anything like this. I'm like speechless, because you always look at history and you go, okay, this is a historic moment. If this polling is anywhere near correct, we are looking at a historic moment right now where black voters under the age of 50, which have historically been such a big part of the Democratic coalition, are leaving it in droves.
Someone in the chat says, that's racist.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's neo-racism to tell
Neo-racism.
people that they should believe something because of the color of their skin.
So that's why the White House is in full panic mode. That, among other reasons, trying to censor videos of the president wandering off stage, wandering around fields, falling asleep during world meetings. It's a disaster, absolute disaster. Here is Biden team calling for social media disinformation censorship after the G7 mishap. Now, many of you may have seen this where he sort of meanders around in the field there, and Giorgia Meloni has to like come over and corral him back in. Look at the New York Post headline today, Meander in Chief. Biden embarrasses U.S. with confused wanderings at the World Conference. And this wasn't just the only one. It was multiple. And so here was that moment where he just wanders off as these parachutists are coming down. Watch.
Also, last night, awkward moment with President Biden where he was looking very doddery. He was wandering around. He sort of wandered off, and Giorgia Meloni, the Italian premier, had to sort of guide him back to the crowd. It was quite painful viewing. Everyone's putting a slight brave face on it this morning. We've got some more for that for the paper tomorrow. But yeah, you can see from that footage yourself. It's this is getting embarrassing now. And you do really wonder how President Biden is going to be able to run an election campaign in October and November for re-election. And if he won, is that a man he really thinks is going to get through the next 4 years?
No, the answer is no, you won't. And that's what we're going to get to here in a second. Now, the Biden campaign spokeswoman says these videos are disinformation. So, that's fake news, what you just saw there, him just wandering around. It was him. He was really captivated by something. It's not.
Well, what they're explaining is you see him looking at another parachuter, and all the other world leaders are looking at the one who's just landed in front of them. So he's kind of like, well, that one's cool too. Like a child, not sure where everyone is supposed to be putting their attention. So you can see it was kind of Giorgia Meloni to go and guide him clearly. And
also it's technically misinformation because we don't have all the facts. We didn't see what he was looking at. Disinformation is if you've seen the facts, you know them, and you're outright saying that's not true.
Right.
This is misinformation because we don't know. We don't know exactly what he was looking at.
It almost doesn't matter. They had planned that all the world leaders were going to interact with this thing, and Biden doesn't understand the plan. That's just doesn't matter what he actually was looking at, even if there was something interesting somewhere else.
So this is what their campaign is saying, that these things are, disinformation, misinformation. But how can you hide this from Saturday night where President Obama has to literally lead Biden off a stage because he doesn't know where to go? And this one went viral over the past few hours. Watch. So there they are saying goodbye. Obama walking off. There we go. Let's go. And he just stands there. White House says, and there's Jimmy Kimmel. Let's go. Let's pull you off. Mr. President.
Like, he's been standing there too long.
I mean, just look at the two of them, Like, you okay? Let me walk you off all gingerly. Let me just follow this.
This is fine.
Follow the red arrow on the floor. See
just
that
like
red
old
arrow?
times, Joe.
And just look at his hands when he walks now. He like keeps them perfectly like straight down and does. And I saw a doctor was saying that that's a sign of mental stuff. But he's like this,
mental stuff.
and he kind of does this now. When he used to be like all animated and everything.
Yeah.
Definitely want to go to a doctor that says mental stuff.
What do you have, doctor? Mental stuff.
You have some mental stuff. Mental stuff, doctor. This video was just leaked, though. So now we know that was the end of it. Now we see this. The video just leaked showing Biden because someone filmed it inside. I guess they weren't really allowed to use phone cameras or whatever. This is Biden stumbling over his words. This is such an embarrassing moment here. So Obama's just like looking on as President Biden. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about. Watch.
And guess what? It's growing. The economy's growing. People are doing better. We have the highest unemployment, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We have more people. We've had over 15 million people brand new hired into the workforce. My son says we all have various short-term descriptions for your jobs, for what you accomplished. And he should say Joe Jobs.
So, Adrian,
that was the punchline.
Yeah, I guess
that was the punchline.
That was the punchline of the joke. Adrian Elrod from the Biden campaign explains how this is disinformation. So she went on MSNBC to say, he's like, all these videos you're seeing of the president wandering around, stumbling over his words, can't put a sentence together, and the private meetings that are people, it's all just, don't worry, it's all just fake news.
Disinformation is alive and well. We have to use surrogates and voices across the country to combat this and make it clear that not only do we not play this game, but to your point, President Biden was out there literally representing America at the G7, saluting our troops, doing what he does as president of the United States. And look, we're going to see more of this. I mean, this is just the reality of campaigning in 2024. So we have to combat that disinformation. We have to hit it hard when it happens and make it clear that these are dirty tactics that MAGA Republicans are using because they can't run on the issues, Lemire. They have to use these dirty tactics like this because they are not right with Americans on the issues. So we're going to see more of this. We're going to do what we can to combat it. But it does take the voices of surrogates across the country. It does take the media to call it out. It does take social media platforms where a lot of Americans are getting their information to point it out as well.
Yeah, so you guys have to do your part. You guys have to fight disinformation. So when you see President Biden wandering off, you need to go on social media and say, he's not wandering off. He just saw a rabbit jump into the forest.
No, that's exactly what I saw liberals doing just today, saying this did not happen. That's all. Like, here's the video, and it did not happen. I've seen it. And in fact, Colin Rugg, I think is his last name, has a great summary of all of the people who said exactly that. That's gaslighting.
So they're following. They've marshaled their bots. The Biden administration has marshaled their team of liberal social media people to go out there and just basically say, as a surrogate. She's like, we need to get our surrogates. And she says the media, MSNBC, you're doing a great job here. You're fighting this, MSNBC. You've got to push this out there.
She says this is the reality of running for election. What she's missing there is if you're senile.
Right.
Yes, that is the reality.
And I was going to point out, it's the media and Mark Hamill.
Right, you need Mark Hamill and Jack Black apparently over the past
they're both great
over
surrogates.
The past. Well, those at the G7 though, this is the important thing, right? So you can have these videos of him wandering around a field, and you can try to combat that disinformation. But it was those that were at the G7 who are interacting with the president. These are officials. And she's labeling it disinformation, but officials who were there know better. Listen.
What was going on? I mean, obviously, most G7 summits are diplomatic sprints. You expect to see the President of the United States, as other world leaders, doing a flurry of meetings. Has he been doing the same thing?
No, he ducked out of the dinner last night. And frankly, Jack, I'm gonna ruin my story for the paper tomorrow by telling it to never mind the ballots. But my sources, diplomatic sources here, people I've been speaking to, say it's the worst they've ever seen Joe Biden. Wow. And he's in a bad way, and he's losing focus in meetings. Sometimes he's very sharp, sometimes he's very much not. So some worrying developments there, and an exclusive news story to never mind the ballot.
Yeah. So, yeah, the people that were in private meetings. So I'd love to see how they want to spin that as disinformation. These are private meetings with officials who are saying and going on the record to the newspaper saying this is the worst they've ever seen him. Like he's just losing. They can't even have a conversation with the guy. Well, he's totally demented.
It's like Jean Pierre. She'll always make excuses. Oh, he runs circles around us. He's as sharp as a tack. And it's like they'll just say, well, he was just tired. He was on a flight, and they just make excuses for this. But it's like it's disgusting that they're parading this man who obviously has something wrong. I said mental issues. I meant to say dementia, but I wasn't sure if it was Alzheimer's or dementia, so I didn't want to say definitively. But they're just parading this guy around and it's disgusting.
Yeah. And especially when you remember how much the media loved talking about removing Trump for competency towards the end of his presidency. And that was the story. The story now is them working equally as hard, saying he's really fine, what you see. And so nobody has spoken in the liberal media about removing him for competency the way that was the story around the end of the Trump administration.
Well, we now have confirmation that, yes, President Biden will be replaced on the Democratic ticket before the November election. Congresswoman Luna confirmed to Fox News that this was the case.
with currently what's coming out of the White House that, a lot of people realize that Joe Biden's likely not going to be the nominee, which is, from what we're hearing on Capitol Hill, Jesse, Representative Kiley had reported that Kamala Harris actually eyeing a run for California governor because of it.
Right. That's the backup plan. So you are hearing also in D.C. that Joe Biden isn't going to be the Democrat nominee?
Correct. It appears that our colleagues are trying to put guardrails on a 2024 presidential election with President Trump.
So that's unbelievable. And then on the heels of that, the Daily Mail just about 4 hours ago reporting that, yes, this is going to happen, that Biden will be replaced on the ticket, and how Hillary Clinton, Obama, Pelosi, and Schumer are coming together and will topple the aging president when they do it. This is the plan that's been worked on.
So that's the group of Democratic kingmakers.
Exactly.
It's Pelosi, the Clintons, and Chuck Schumer.
And President Obama. And Obama. Okay. So the Daily Mail
They decide, guys, not us. Not the electorate.
So the Daily Mail has revealed that if Joe loses in the first debate with Trump, or if his polling numbers keep falling like they have, it'll take a united front of liberal grandees to make Joe basically throw in the towel, according to the reports. The only people who would force him out would be Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, according to the Daily Mail. It would have to be one of the four of them collectively. Mrs. Obama, who has no close personal feelings for the Bidens, according to one well-connected Democratic source, flat out ignored the invitation, will not be involved in it.
What?
Strategists theorize, according to the Daily Mail, that Democrats would have to hold a public event to symbolically transfer power from Biden to a new candidate. Absolutely, this would be the case. Like, handing over the baton, basically. And arguably, I think this is really interesting. Nate Silver over at the 538 noted that Biden's average approval rating has reached a new low of 37.4%. And the number one concern among voters is his age, which Silver said was an extremely understandable concern, as Biden acts and looks his age is a huge outlier to ask for the job until he's 86 years old. That's a huge polling factor in this. But here's, I think, the really interesting piece of this is that Atlantic columnist Mark Leibovich basically says and cruelly sort of stamped the president as Ruth Bader Biden. And basically saying that that's a reference, of course, to the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who angered a lot of liberals while Obama was president and didn't step down so that he could replace her. What they're saying is that this is his moment to not pull a Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that Biden should step down for the good of the party, hand it over to Gavin Newsom, and allow Kamala Harris then to take over. She'll run for governor of California. And this will be the move that, according to the Daily Mail and according to Congressman Luna and other Democratic strategists and sources,
why wouldn't
they would do
she
this.
step up to run for the presidency? Because they realize that she's so unpopular.
She's so unpopular and totally incompetent. But you can, as we know by being governor of California, you can be incredibly incompetent in California.
Yeah.
And
could you imagine having to sit through one of her State of the Unions?
Oh my God. Well,
like this word salad,
that would actually be better because it's scripted. So she'll just read off a teleprompter. It's when she speaks extemporaneously that's almost as bad as President Biden. So, again, President or Gavin Newsom. So Politico has this piece, of course, on Kamala for governor. They have a whole big piece about, yes, she should be the governor of California. See all these pieces coming together for the liberal media right now?
I see it.
Do you see it?
I see what you're laying out for me, my darling.
And then Gavin Newsom wants nothing more, of course, as we pointed out here, than to be president of the United States. He's been saying all of the right things. He's been praising Joe Biden, not insulting him one iota. Here he was on Alex Wagner. We showed you this, but this is like one of the most disgusting displays of like sycophantic behavior. Watch.
Who in their mind would want to run when you have someone of such esteem as our incumbent president of the United States, with a record of accomplishments and a man of character, a man of decency? I'm old school. Talk about loyalty. I'll go to ends of the earth for this guy. I really would.
Yeah, sure you would, because you're about to become the Democratic nominee, Gavin Newsom. So there you guys go.
Republicans in California have been warning about this for a long time, that he is running a shadow candidacy for the president, and they've been watching him and trying to warn us. So for Californians, this may not be a new revelation, but for the rest of us, we're like, what? We have to, all right, here we go.
Yeah, it's going to happen, guys. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. We've got a lot more news to get to here on your Monday. We're going to talk about Maine. The state of Maine wants you taxpayers to pay for using drugs. We'll explain this crazy story and a new word that we're going to introduce into your lexicon today that...
it means up your...
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. That's why I told you to stop eating.
Yeah, and we've got more news to get to here. We're going to talk about the Justice Department trying to go after will they go after Merrick Garland, or will he walk away with not giving these Biden audio tapes out? We'll talk about that. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at Shopify, because Shopify is a global commerce platform that helps you sell whatever it is you'd like to sell on the internet. And they help you all the way from designing your store to launching your store. And they help with the back end so that you can sell things and receive money. It's super easy. They have around the clock customer support. In fact, the Redacted store runs on Shopify because it is really that easy to do. So whenever we, let's say, have a new idea for a new shirt or a new mug, we can easily execute on that. We don't have to send off designs or get models made or whatever. We can do it on Shopify, and it's really that great. So they can take you from the launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage to, oh my gosh, we made $1 million stage. Now, they will give you everything you need to grow your business. So check it out. If you have an idea, go to Shopify and see what it would look like to launch that to the world. You can get a $1 per month trial period by going to shopify.com/redacted. One more time, that's shopify.com/redacted. And you'll get a $1 per month trial period so that you can bring the world your talents using the internet in a very professional way. All right. Well, why does Maine want people to stay on drugs? They specifically want people to die, it seems, by this new taxpayer-funded program. Here's another example of the state handing out drugs without noticing that drug decriminalization and promoting drugs does not help. In fact, it just makes people die faster. But then as they do that, they pat themselves on the back saying, we're so compassionate. Okay, so this is how compassionate the state of Maine is. They're handing out boofing kits to fentanyl addicts. Boofing is when you shoot drugs up your butthole. I said it. I'm not going to say it again. I'm sorry. I warned you.
Oh, my God.
That's what it is. Yeah. We're not doing it. We're not going to show you how to do it. We're telling you that
no demonstrations.
Maine will teach you how to. No. Not today, honey?
No, Maine will teach you, and they'll hand you a pamphlet on how to do it. And taxpayers will pay for it.
I will show you the pamphlet in just a second. So I warned you, if you're eating something, just set that aside till the next one, because this is on the taxpayers, and I'm going to tell you why the heck someone would do this. So, okay, bufa means fart in Portuguese. What? Why'd you give me that look?
Okay, because that's gross. I don't need to.
Yeah, and so boofing, I don't know if that is related at all. It's a weird word. I don't like it, but now you know how the kids.
Well, what's weird is we use that word when we were young, like kids in school.
Boofa?
That was a word. Yeah. No, boofing.
Oh.
Like that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it meant something with butts.
All right. All right.
All right. Let's not go there. So this is from Maine Access Point. It's a taxpayer-funded program that's part of the Maine Recovery Council, and this is real. This is part of the handout that goes with a boofing kit. And here's the actual taxpayers made this, guys. Like, image of the butt and the syringe. And literally, look at the try boofing exclamation point. This is, if you really want to know, then you can screenshot this and look later. And here's the last bit of this. So not only have they done this super catchy, like Saved by the Bell looking flyer, but also they have this info video telling people exactly why somebody should boof.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you use it that way, but here's how they explain it.
So what boofing is inserting drugs into your rectum. And one of the main reasons people do it is because there's a lot of blood vessels in your rectum, a lot of surface area. I always recommend people try boofing.
I always do it.
Switching to snorting can be a little too big of a jump.
I love that because I think also that helps with our minds. So if you're having a really hard time, hitting and it's really starting to you're getting in your head about it and you're starting to get frustrated, just knowing that you do have an option of boofing or booty bumping is I don't know, I think maybe brings a little bit more ease, right? You're like, okay, I'm getting really frustrated. This is really like, it's not working. Okay, I have this other option too.
Man.
And then if you want to inject later because you really enjoy the rush from injecting, like that's fine. But, getting yourself well first can really just like take some of that frustration off.
Yeah. She always recommends
I have so many redacted t-shirt ideas right now.
I love that she says she always recommends.
Always.
Like when she's just like, she's out at a Starbucks or she's out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, hey, friends, I know we haven't been talking about this for a while, but I always recommend boofing.
Yeah.
I always recommend that.
I mean, you got to think.
Have you ever boofed your Starbucks?
God. No. You got to think that, this is a very demoralizing thing to advocate for people when you're actually trying to get them better. And you're like, this is how I'm going to get you better. You've wasted all your veins in your arm and you don't want to sniff because that's, she said, too big of a jump. Like this is okay. Like the nose is a bridge too far, but
God.
This is not. I'm so confused. Now,
Maine wants to become like the new liberal capital of the country or something. Like, hey, forget Portland, forget like all the drugs shooting up in San Francisco, move to Maine.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
you'll meet people like that.
Now, they do this because they think that if they don't, that users will do dangerous things in order to get the drugs anyway. So they don't believe that there's any way to really get them to stop. They think they need to just continue to give them this drip in a safe way. But is this preserving human dignity? I want to remind you of this clip from, it's not a clip, a bit from Michael Schellenberger's great book, San Francisco. And one person, I thought this was an addict who said this to his mom. Her name's Jackie Berlin. And she said that her son really liked Disney's Pinocchio when he was a kid. And he feels like when he is in San Francisco or other liberal places that give out all these drugs, that he is on the island, Pleasure Island. He says on one side of the street, there are people giving you food and clean needles. On the other side of the street are all the drug dealers. It's like getting all the candy and treats that you think you want. You think you're having fun, but little by little, it's taking away your humanity and turning you into something you were never meant to be. Like how the kids start turning into donkeys in Pinocchio and then end up trapped and in cages. So this is an addict giving what I think is a very brilliant analogy. Like, oh my God, I thought I wanted this. How did I get here? And all of a sudden I'm this. And in fact, we spoke to this mother about a year ago. And here's what she said about these programs where you're giving out drugs and giving access to drugs to addicts.
So right now there's a big push to open safe consumption sites is what they call them.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to put our resources. I'm asking for the resources to be put into more treatment and rehabilitation. There's about 2,500 homeless people on the streets in San Francisco, most of them because of drug addiction or mental illness. And we only have 37 detox beds in the entire city.
Okay, she's quite right. So what I'm pointing out here is that liberal cities have no desire to rehabilitate drug addicts. They just continue to push it on them. And when you talk about, well, let's rehab them, let's give them consequences for not testing clean, what the people who are responsible for the homeless industrial complex say is, oh no, that's racist. We want body autonomy. They should be able to do whatever they want. And in fact, giving people drugs is called MAT, medically assisted treatment, and there's no standard for it. So like when you get an antibiotic, they take your height and weight and your age, and then they know how much to give you. That is not the case with MAT. Most providers are kind of going off what they think because there's no professional standard. And a lot of times that goes very wrong. This is according to the book Dope Sick, which later became a series, which was great work by this journalist, Beth Macy. And she said that overprescribing among doctors specializing in addiction treatment is rampant, according to several rural MAT patients that she spoke to who unpacked how Suboxone doctors prescribed them twice as much of the drug they needed, fully knowing that they would sell some on the black market so that they could afford to return for their next visit. Others traded in their drugs for illicit heroin or pills. So this is when you're giving people these drugs, they go off and sell them a lot of times, and it's not making anything better. This book was written in 2018, so we've known this since, but we keep doing this. Oregon practices, Matt, and recently decriminalized drugs as well, and data has shown that that only helped accelerate drug deaths. So look at the number of overdose deaths. Now, we can attribute some of that to the pandemic, but also, again, these policies that are pushing drugs even more. And again, the only thing that's known to help people on drugs is a trifecta of treatment coupled with weaning them off drugs and not consistent access to drugs. So it has to be therapists, law enforcement, and experts, which is exactly what they found in DopeSick, that the drug courts now remain the country's only model for preventing recidivism and relapse. So it's basically, again, the drug courts, and they have to test clean. And when they actually require that, people graduate these programs, and graduates are roughly half to a third less likely to return to crime or drugs than regular probationers, because you have expectations. You have to stay clean, and then you give them something to work for. So continuously giving these drugs is not, in fact, compassionate. And that's what the law is found in Amsterdam, in Portugal. We have a system for this, but we're told we can't do it by liberal government because it's racist. Not to mention that when a company, what happens to a community when you send out all these people that you've put on drugs? Well, guess what? Crime goes up. That's what happened when Oregon enacted ballot measure 110, which did decriminalize drugs. If you look at here where 110 happened, so Boise and Sacramento are sort of the test cases where drugs are still illegal. But in Portland and Seattle, when they were legalized, what you're seeing here is rates of property crime. So again, it's not only hurting the people that they're keeping on drugs, but it's hurting the community as well, who is not anyone who's not on drugs. So maybe that's why Oregon governor repealed this ballot measure in April and said, this is not working. So what we're seeing here is these liberal cities and their drug programs, their attempts to be compassionate, are crumbling out from below us. And all this to say, it's not compassionate to enable continued drug use to the point where you can no longer find a viable vein, so you have to use your bum. But that is exactly what Maine is still doing. And I'm sure that sucks to know that your taxpayer dollars are going to that. But let's look at some of the amounts that Maine is using. Again, this whole program was over close to $500,000 in 2021. And they're not quite sure how much of it is going to boofing, but it's still very expensive. The council will oversee the administration of funding totaling $63 million through 2028. So Maine taxpayers, thanks for that. If you are grossed out by this, don't blame me, blame Maine. So let us know what you think of that.
Blame Canada. All right, we got more news to get to here in a minute. We're going to talk about Canada rallying against the Trudeau government, saying keep your hands off our children in Canada. But they're also going one step further and saying enough is enough with the scandals, the spying, the Chinese spying that's been happening inside of Parliament. That scandal has followed Trudeau all the way to the G7. We'll talk about that. Plus, Viva Fry is going to join us here in just moments to talk about the Justice Department and what the Justice Department is doing against Merrick Garland or not doing against Merrick Garland in relation to these audio tapes from President Biden. We'll talk about all of that and more. But first, got to tell you about a recent discovery that we have here, a brand that we're obsessed with right now. And our friends, thousands of 5-star reviews for our friends over at Armra. Now, it's Armra Colostrum, and these are the benefits that we're seeing. It's unbelievable. It's the first nutrition that we receive in life when you're a baby, and it contains all of the essential nutrients that our bodies need in order to thrive. So Armra Colostrum is a proprietary concentrate of bovine colostrum that harnesses over 400 living bioactive nutrients, strengthens the barriers of your body, fuels cellular health for thousands of research-backed health benefits. It strengthens your immune system, ignites metabolism, fortifies your gut health, activates hair growth, skin radiance, powers fitness performance, recovery, confers powerful anti-aging benefits. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And guess what? You guys can try it 15% off your first order. And we really want to thank them for supporting Redacted. You guys just try it. It is fantastic for them to give, an opportunity for your hair to grow back, glowing skin, stimulates stem cells, collagen production, all of it. Try it right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to tryarmra.com/redacted. If you're driving and you want to know how to spell that, it's just try, TRYARMRA.com. So that's tryarmra.com/redacted. Get 15% off. It really is fantastic. And we have this special offer just for you guys that they've worked out for us to tryarmra.com/redacted to get 15% off your first order today.
The Justice Department will not prosecute itself. I know, it's so shocking. The Justice Department was referred for a criminal investigation to look into Attorney General Merrick Garland for refusing to hand over tapes of President Biden's interview over classified documents. Joining me to discuss this is one of my favorite YouTubers who always breaks down legal issues in an understandable and fun way. Viva Fry joins Redacted for the first time. Fry. I'm sorry, I say it wrong, and our viewers correct me every time. I don't know why that throws me.
Well, I was told many times to change the name of the channel, but I'm stubborn. It's Fry, like half of my last name is Freiheit, so
yes,
freedom.
Right. Okay. So we're essentially talking about freedom. What we're talking about today, though, is obvious question. Do we have a two-party justice system? Because we see that the Attorney General is protecting the Biden administration. Is there any other way to see it?
People make the not the stereotypical sort of trope that it's hierarchy. It's not justice, but hierarchy. I don't think it's hierarchy. It's just lawlessness at this point in time. It's like when they found Merrick Garland in contempt, and I'm like, well, who would prosecute him? Oh, the Department of Justice would have to decide whether or not to prosecute itself. And you go back historically, we have the examples where there have been bona fide contempt of Congress. When the government was breaking the law. I mean, Eric Holder is the classic example. They refer to it in the memo, declining to prosecute themselves. There have been bona fide cases of contempt of Congress, contempt of subpoenas, when the government was breaking the law, nothing, crickets. And now you have two cases within the last 3 years where it's just outright lawlessness, where they jail Peter Navarro for defying a congressional subpoena that was arguably unlawful on its face. And I say arguably, but not arguably. And Steve Bannon now, who's trying to stay out of jail pending the appeal. So it's not a two-tier system. It's not hierarchy. It's just outright lawlessness where, as much as the color of someone's sweater, to use the Judge Engeron's example, is the distinction that allows the government to say, we're not prosecuting ourselves, but we're locking up our political adversaries.
And so is this precedent setting? Is now any subpoena lacks teeth because it's not being enforced?
They've never really been enforced. I mean, the contempt of Congress was a political feather in the hat, and everyone knew nothing was going to happen. It's just the way things are going now. What was always just a political stunt, a political maneuver. Find Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. Forget the other examples. All right, good. You score some political points, but nobody's going to jail. And that was the precedent for the history of America until the Biden administration said, no, we're going to put you in jail now. And not for little, like a day or two or a week or something nominal, months. Navarro is in jail for months. They're trying to put Bannon in jail for months, 4 months leading up to the 2024 election. They've gone crazy in that what was otherwise just political maneuvering, political stunts, has now turned into depriving people of their freedoms. And for the most egregiously lawless or unlawful reasons. Navarro and Bannon, they're not equivalent to Eric Holder by way of the best example. The January 6th committee that issued those subpoenas, I'm not going to say it purportedly, was unlawfully formed in the first place. It didn't meet the quorum of the House resolution that authorized it. It wasn't bipartisan by any means. The two bipartisan Republicans, those so-called Republicans, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, were handpicked by Nancy Pelosi. So that committee was unlawfully formed in the first place. They can't issue lawful subpoenas. That's a question of law that needs to be adjudicated before you lock someone up and then say, oh, you're right, we're overturning your appeal after you get out of jail. So
was that part of Steve Bannon's defense? about the...
It's part of Steve Bannon's defense as well. Bannon and Navarro. The committee was unlawfully formed. I had executive privilege, and I was relying on professional advice. These were defenses they weren't allowed to raise. And so these are three questions that need to be answered by the Supreme Court. Was the subpoena lawful in the first place? Can they jail you for contempt of a subpoena if the subpoena was not lawfully issued by a lawfully formed committee? Seems like a decent question in law that should be answered before deprivation of liberty. Was executive privilege properly waived? This is the issue in Bannon and Navarro, where they're arguing executive privilege wasn't properly lawfully waived, as if there's some protocol that needs to be gone through in order for the the assertion of executive privilege to be carried out. And so, and then there's reliance on professional advice. Their lawyers told them, I don't know if it was, this is not a lawful subpoena, or you have executive privilege, you need not testify, in which case, or comply with the subpoena, in which case you're lacking one of the two elements of a criminal infraction. You got the actus reus and the mens rea, the intent to commit the crime, or the act that constitutes the crime. So reliance on professional advice has always been a defense. All these two gentlemen were stripped of these defenses and found guilty of contempt of a congressional subpoena when nobody else has been in the history of America that I know of. I think there might have been, but you know what I'm getting at.
Right. So the very act, though, of hiding the tapes of the of Joe Biden's interview with the Justice Department is interesting. I read Andrew Weissman's book, Where Law Ends, about the Mueller investigation. And one thing that really bothers him is that James Comey maligned Hillary Clinton in the run-up to the 2016 election. And he felt like that didn't give her a proper trial. She just was maligned without having her day in court, and that influenced the outcome of the election. So now we see something even more blatant is trying to hide information from American voters. Do you see it that way? Is there any other way to see it for us not being able to hear or read the transcripts?
Well, there's only two possibilities with that. I'll get to that in a second. But nobody maligned Hillary Clinton. She maligned herself through her actions and her deeds and her words. So
yes, this is a liberal excuse. And, I read all kinds of things that I don't necessarily agree with, just to say, like, what are they going with this? Where, it's wild.
No, I said that. That wasn't a critique at all. I was just saying, like, it's an interesting thing where the victimizers always pretend to be the victim in Hillary Clinton. They maligned me after I admitted to bleach bits, smashing stuff. Oh, no, they maligned me.
Yes.
No, your actions maligned yourself, Hillary. With the Joe Biden transcript and audio, it's wild. It can only be one of two things. Either the audio does not match the transcript, which I think we have sufficient evidence to conclude would be a matter of fact, in which case they're trying to hide damaging evidence leading up to an election. I mean, can you imagine how bad that audio could potentially be? So it's either one of two things. Either the audio doesn't match the transcript. It's going to be evidence of a cover-up to make that befuddled old man look more sane and less senile than he actually is. Or it matches, and it's just a red herring to get people spinning their gears, get people up in arms, and then release the audio, and it doesn't reveal anything. And you say, look at all these idiots. They just spent 2 months screaming and complaining about corruption, and the audio matches the transcript. So it can only be one of two things. Neither of which are good, because basically you're playing politics and you're playing law. I happen to firmly believe that it's going to reveal that holy crab apples was that 5-hour meeting over 2 days, as incoherent and rambling as the videos that we're seeing of Joe Biden coming out of the G7 summit and his visit to France. So they're concealing evidence because they've given up the transcript, or at least they've disclosed the transcript. So they can't then say, you have no legislative basis to request the audio when we've given you the transcript of the audio. It just doesn't make sense. So they are, in my view, clearly hiding something, but it wouldn't surprise me either if they're just making people spin their wheels and waste time and waste energy to get this audio recording, which they might get sooner than later, but we'll get it later at some point.
Okay. But House Speaker Mike Johnson says that he will seek a court order. Could that actually enforce this with the Justice Department still at the helm?
Well, this is where I would have to pick the brains of smarter people. I'm just a lowly former Quebec attorney. I don't look from what I've seen. What are they going to do? Executive privilege, and it's been asserted. Tough noogies. That's it. You can't have one branch of government basically controlling the other. I can understand that argument. Bottom line, it's just dirty politics, and it's clear that they're hiding something. I just think there might be the argument that they can't assert the absence of a legislative purpose for the subpoena for the audio because they've already provided the transcript. So how can you give half of something without giving the other half when it's part and parcel of the same thing? So they might have waived it, which might be an interesting legal argument. But above and beyond exerting executive privilege, I don't know how they get around it.
So then do you feel on this and many other things that you talk about, Hunter Biden, the Trump documents case, all of these things, that we are literally hitting the boundaries of the universe? Like we didn't expect to get this far. And now we're testing our system with almost everything becoming political and, like you said, lawless.
I've been here in this sphere for long enough when I was totally wet behind the ears and had no appreciation of the depths of the corruption, and lived through 2016 and 2020. And now I've been in America for close to 2 years. I keep saying they've crossed Rubicon after Rubicon. Never in a million years, 8 years ago, would I think it would have gotten to this point. It used to be like, defamatory politics. It used to be slander, dragging your name through the mud. It never used to be trying to lock up your political opponents for the rest of their lives, lock up their family, put their attorneys in jail. I mean, it's gone from dirty politics to deprivation of liberty, desecration of solicitor-client privilege, weaponization of the prosecutorial system, the justice system. I don't know how much further it can go. It will swing back. The only question is, the pendulum swings back or it just falls over and shatters. We'll see which one comes first. But no, I've never could have imagined it would have gotten this far and this extreme.
Yeah, same. Well, I want to keep you around for a redacted conversation. So that is something our viewers can watch in the upcoming days, because I want to know why you would choose to come to America. If you don't mind, you don't have to get that personal, but that's something that our viewers can watch in the coming days. So for this segment, I want to say thank you for your expertise. And I hope this is the first of many times that we can meet on camera and maybe in person as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great having him here. Great to have you here for the first time on Redacted. Love some of our contemporaries like that, and our audience loves him as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. By the way, I should mention, please subscribe to the channel. I don't ask you guys enough to do that, but it's great when you guys subscribe. It's totally free to be a subscriber here on the channel. Whether you're on YouTube, you hit subscribe. If you're on Rumble, I think you hit follow. If you're on X, I think you hit follow. I don't know. They're changing the names up. Anyway, it's free. Please subscribe. We're live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So good to see all of you guys. And we try to cover the stories the mainstream media ignores. And we don't have an agenda other than the truth. So we've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about Canada. By the way, Canadians are rising up. They have had enough of the woke agenda items that are being forced down their throats up there. Gender ideology, LGBTQ plus on their children. Muslims, Christians, Jews, all coming together and marching against this Trudeau government and these woke ideologies that are being pushed on them right now. And they do not like it. They want you guys to fight. But all these people are coming together, pushing for a 1 million person march, hopefully multiple millions in Canada rising up. We'll tell you about that in a moment. But first,
we want to tell you about American financing, because in this hard economy, a lot of us find that it is hard to find enough expendable income to just live your life, pay your bills. That's why you can look into what you have, perhaps equity in your home, and see if you can use that and leverage it to pay off high interest debt. Now, this is what wealthy people do all the time. They don't think about, that equity, I should just leave it there. What if, right? Well, we're here in the worst case scenario. What if is you're living with high interest credit card debt or other types of debt, and you have no cash to live your life. So what they can do is teach you to leverage your equity in order to save money on your high interest or undesirable credit cards or whatever it is that you have a loan on. On average, they save their customers $854 per month. Now, this is just something that you can look into. Think about what's the worst that can happen and learn it with your significant other or whoever it is you do your finances with, and say, could this work for us? Could this free us from the rat race in any way, shape, or form? The average, again, customer is almost like getting a $10,000 a year raise by just leveraging something that they've already had. It's yours. That equity is yours. You should leverage it to do best in your life. So see if they can teach you how to do this. Go to americanfinancing.net/redacted, or you can call them at 866-890-8434. Again, just get that high interest loan, whatever it is in your life, use to leverage what you've got to free yourself. So again, americanfinancing.net/redacted.
All right. So, we thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our show here. We appreciate it. Earlier, we've been tearing down the studio and ripping apart things here. So if you look at my one shot, take a look at my one shot here. Right there. Yeah, see, so we got stuff all removed here in the studio.
All of Clayton's tchotchke is gone.
Yeah, my books
His
back
beloved
there.
tchotchke. Mine is still there for a little bit longer.
All of her tchotchkes are still here.
I have
but mine are gone. So anyway, tearing down the studio. We're building a new studio, so things are just in transition right now. So earlier I had a chance to sit down with our friend, Canadian journalist David Creighton, to talk about this massive march that happened all across Canada over the weekend, and also Justin Trudeau's embarrassing turn at the G7. Watch. Well, Canadians have had enough. They want their government to keep their hands off their children. They want the government to keep their hands off their children. They want the teachers to keep their hands off their children. They held a big rally this weekend in Canada to talk all about that. Independent journalist David Creighton was there, and he's going to break it all down. Also, we have some big news on the spy scandal from Justin Trudeau, who made some waves at the G7. In addition to yelling out crazily Slava Ukraini, pro-Ukraine comments from Justin Trudeau. But I specifically want to focus on the keeping our hands off our children. And David joins us now. David, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Nice to be back, Clayton.
So what was the name of this big event, and kind of walk us through what the response was?
The event was called One Nation Under God Rally for Children. And it was a twofold effort here. First of all, to acknowledge the success of the walkout during so-called Pride Week, when children walked out of their classroom or just didn't go to school to protest the raising of the so-called Pride flag. And this happens in the first week of June because in Canada, June is supposedly Pride Month. But the Hands Off Our Kids group, which is being led very ably by a friend of mine named Camille El Sheikh, decided to do something about that this year, and they staged a walkout. And it was hugely successful. So instead of kids being forced to go outside and watch this pride flag being raised, they stayed home, or they just walked away from it. And the success of this, 50% plus across the country, school kids stayed away.
Wow.
This is from Halifax to Vancouver. It was enormously successful. So the One Nation Under God Rally for Children was about recognizing that achievement. We got about 500 people out, which is not bad for an Ottawa rally on Saturday morning. But that's really doesn't describe the effect that this walkout, this boycott had, because this involved hundreds of thousands of kids across the country. And this group was prepared for this. They had their people in place. They got the word out. Of course, you didn't hear about it in the mainstream media. You heard about it on Redacted. You heard about it in my media. But you didn't hear about it on the mainstream media. They didn't report this, except one instance in the Peel region north of Toronto, where the school board there said no to the pride flag. But this was a huge event. And it was also what Camille was trying to do with this exercise, this rally, was to demonstrate that in Canada, despite all of the foreign wars and all of the distractions we have in Canada, that the faith community in Canada is still united. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs are united in their opposition to the pride flag being forced down the throats of Canadian kids, of LGBTQ plus indoctrination being forced down the throats of Canadian kids, and gender ideology being once again foisted on our children, and parents having to stand by while this happens. So this is what this rally was about, to demonstrate that this is being a huge success, and it's going to continue to be a huge success, because the follow-up to this, of course, is another million-person march in September 20th, it's planned. Last year, we got 1.5 million Canadians out to protest gender ideology. Camille tells me this year he's anticipating 2, 3, 4, perhaps 5 million Canadians marching against gender ideology. I'm sure you'd agree with me, Clayton. You said Canada can't happen here. This is a docile country that just likes to let the government run roughshod over their rights. Doesn't care if Justin Trudeau imposes his personal extremist values on the rest of us. Clearly, that's not true. And I'm so proud to see Canadians overcome these religious differences. And the Christians, evangelical Christians, Roman Catholics, Muslims, and Jews can get together in love and to say that we are parents together. We all have that in common. And we love Canada, and we love being parents, and we love our children. Justin Trudeau does not love our children.
Yeah, it seems like Canadians, maybe they've always been awake, but it seems like there's an awakening happening over the past few years. I mean, I think maybe perhaps the catalyst, COVID, trucker convoy, government tyranny, the Trudeau government stepping on the toes of these Canadians who didn't want these mandates, who wanted to be able to live their life and do their job and not be told by the government what they can or can't do. What was the response from the mainstream media? Did the Canadian Broadcasting Company come out to cover any of these rallies? Did any of the other state-run media come out to cover the hundreds of thousands of people across Canada who were part of this Keep Your Hands Off Our Children event?
Not at all. Not at all. With the exception of Peel School Board, which is north of Toronto, where the school board actually voted to not raise the pride flag. And the principal of one of the schools overrode that decision and put a pride flag not on a flagpole, but inside the school. Now, that has been reported by some mainstream media. The fact that it has been a nationwide protest that has been this successful, that has seen up to 70% participation in some schools. 70%. No, they won't touch it. And I think that's because in this country, the mainstream media has been in the pocket of the LGBTQ plus activists for so long. They've been in the pocket of the Trudeau government for so long, just parroting the talking points uncritically. Like, nobody should be offended about this gay pride flag. Nobody should be offended about this pornography in the classrooms and in the libraries. Nobody should be offended that children as young as 12 are being told to have sex change operations because of supposed gender dysphoria. Just don't worry about it, the media has been saying for years. Read any article, and it's uncritical. You will not get a response from anybody else. You will not get anybody in the story saying, just a minute, perhaps there's another alternative to this. It's been uncritical reporting, and they don't know what to do about this right now. They can't believe that Canadians are this upset about it, and they really, really can't believe that Muslims and Christians and Jews are all working together on this. That really bothers them, because they thought we were all divided in this country, that we were all fighting about foreign wars. And thanks to people like Camille, he has done a bang-up job here, bringing people together, not dividing them over issues, bringing people together of different faiths over the things they agree with. And these are huge issues they agree with, huge issues.
Yeah, it is amazing. They really do want to divide Canadians. They want to divide all of us right now. If we're fighting, then it allows them to push these agendas and push them through without us paying attention to it. I want to talk about the G7, Justin Trudeau making waves there. Apart from this unbelievable moment, you have to watch this. This just made me laugh. This is so cringeworthy. I mean, I literally almost threw my computer across the room when I saw this. So he's there, group of leaders fawning over Zelensky, giving more money to Ukraine, and he just yells out like a total weirdo, Slava Ukraini! And everyone's like, what the hell? Everyone looks over at Justin Trudeau yelling out, Slava Ukraini. Watch this. Slava Ukraini! So that was an incredibly cringe moment. But beyond that, beyond him talking about sending more weapons and tanks and light armor and other things to Ukraine, he even talked about the training that Canadians are doing in Ukraine. He doesn't rule out sending Canadian troops to Ukraine. He was asked about the spy scandal back home, and that followed him all the way to the G7. Surprisingly, reporters even asked him about the spy scandal in the Canadian Parliament while he's at the G7. What happened here?
Well, there's another clip, but you might be able to find at some point, where Justin Trudeau goes into a hacking coughing fit when he's asked about the spy scandal. He disappears from the camera, and he's coughing for literally 2 minutes, disappears from the camera, and apparently is getting some talking points from one of his aides, because I don't believe he read the report from the NISCOP, which is this all-parliamentary group. He's the one that got the first copy. He's the one that got the unredacted, copy of this. That was cabinet confidential. So only the cabinet's seen this. Justin Trudeau was the first person to get this report in its unredacted form. Did he read it? I don't think he did, because he always routinely says he hates reading those dry reports. And he didn't read anything CSIS gave him about Chinese interference in the election, he said, although his chief of staff tried to cover that one up. But I don't believe he read it, because he had, shall we say, the ignorance to say that, well, you can read this report and get various conclusions. Well, sorry, nobody who's actually read the redacted report has come to that conclusion. It's clear that this is about treason, this is about spying, and this is about MPs who are sitting in the House of Commons right now. Many of them, I'm sure, are Liberals. Some of them could be in the cabinet, and especially those cabinet ministers who are associated with China, like the environment minister. So there's a huge question mark here as to who these MPs are, but the question mark is not whether they were spying, it's who was spying. So Justin Trudeau doesn't seem to even know that much. He seems to think that there's some question about whether or not there was any wrongdoing going on here, whether anybody should be prosecuted, whether any MP should be denied their next nomination and not run in the next election. Did he read the report? I don't believe he did, because he constantly looks like a man who is searching for an answer. And by the way, if he gives any more of our Leopard tanks away, he's already cleaned out the military arsenal in Canada. There's nothing left, and he won't spend money on defense anyway. So this is, and did you catch the moment when Justin Trudeau mixed up Russia and Ukraine? He does that routinely. He's not even sure which country he's supporting. So it was a bad weekend for Justin Trudeau. Great weekend in Canada for Canadian parents, but a bad one for Justin Trudeau.
Well, it's amazing to me that a country's prime minister or a country's president could upstage President Biden at the G7 for total incompetence, wandering around, looking at parachutists coming down where Giorgia Meloni has to lead them around by an arm. Total embarrassment. But Justin Trudeau manages to even outshine President Biden for a level of incompetence. I'm going to try that the next time someone has a serious question for me. I'm just going to go into a coughing fit, and I'm just going to walk off and look for somebody to hand me some talking points and come back a minute later after I've had time to digest it. That's an unbelievable strategy. Yeah, we'll be watching this. But the spy scandal continues, no answers, and we'll see what the Trudeau administration does about this. David Creighton, great job. Great seeing you out at the rally this weekend. Great to hear what Canadians are up to on this, and hope to see up to 4 or 5 million of them for the next stage of this. That'll be fantastic. So, David, great to see you as always.
Well, we'll be there for the 1 million person march, and Redacted will be there if I'm there. So thank you for having me on again, Clayton.
Thank you so much, David. And to have, upwards of 4 million people there standing up against Trudeau's tyranny would be absolutely amazing. So Canadians, our hats off to you up there. Hopefully you guys are rising up. Hey, we just got some breaking news just a few minutes ago. Pfizer is now being sued by the state of Kansas. That's right. So for misrepresentation of their COVID vaccines and for adverse events. So this is a major development from a state lobbying a lawsuit against Big Pharma. And, I bring that up also because Big Pharma continues to work in lockstep with the FDA to try to go after supplements and other medications and other natural remedies that can actually help you. And that's exactly what our friends over at Black Forest Supplements are dealing with right now. They are being attacked by Big Pharma and the FDA. And this is unbelievable. So what Black Forest Supplements makes is NMN, which is a precursor to NAD+. Now, Philip, what is NMN?
That is a nicotinamide mononucleotide.
I was going to have you say it, yes, as our resident biologist here. And it's been shown to provide numerous health benefits, such as improved energy, weight management, endurance, strength, even anti-aging. But guess what? The FDA wants to reclassify it as a drug, restricting its access to us, restricting access to all of you to a supplement that could significantly improve people's lives. But despite all of that, despite the big attack by Big Pharma and the FDA, you still have an opportunity to actually take advantage of Black Forest's NMN supplement. As a daily user of Black Forest, their NMN 1,000 milligram supplement, you're going to experience remarkable boost in energy levels, mental clarity, overall well-being. Once you start using this supplement, you're going to wonder how you ever managed without it. Unbelievable. And I want you to check them out right now. Right now, even with all of these attacks by the FDA and Big Pharma, you can buy 2, get 1 free, 48 hours only. There's a 48-hour promo right now if you go to blackforestsupplements.com/redacted. But this is the kind of stuff that the FDA does, and Big Pharma working in cahoots with them, trying to come after these guys. But you can buy 2, get 1 free right now. Only promo by going to blackforestsupplements.com/redacted right now. Stand up for your right to access beneficial health products and fight back against those who seek to limit our choices right now. So check them out. All right, our thanks to Black Forest Supplements. So we just got some breaking news just in now to the studio just a few minutes ago from the White House. So now, earlier in the show, we were talking about President Biden, of course, and the White House is set to replace President Biden in the next couple of weeks, likely with Gavin Newsom. That seems to be the plan. The Daily Mail confirming that that's the case. But also the White House has been in panic mode over the last few days over all of these videos that have gone viral. The president wandering around the Italian countryside when Giorgia Meloni has to come over and corral him back in from the G7, to him on stage with President Obama over the weekend on Saturday night, and President Obama has to lead him off the stage. It's embarrassing. He's speaking on camera and he can't put 2 words together in private meetings. Those who are meeting at the G7 say that's the worst they've ever seen him. But the Biden administration is now calling these videos disinformation, and they're calling them fakes. And that's what Adrienne Elrod from the Biden campaign just said a little bit ago. She said this is disinformation and these are fake videos. Really? And that's exactly what Karine Jean-Pierre just said in the White House press briefing room. They're all on the same page now. They're calling them deep fakes, fake manipulated videos. Watch.
There seems to be a sort of rash of videos that have been edited to make the president appear especially frail or mentally confused. I'm wondering if the White House is especially worried about the fact that this appears to be a pattern that we're seeing more often.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation, and so we see this, and this is something coming from your part of the world, calling them cheap fakes and misinformation. And I'll quote the Washington Post, where they wrote about this, and they said how Republicans use misleading videos to attack Biden in a 24-hour period. And to their credit, we have a conservative Washington Examiner did call them out as well, calling out the New York Post. Ironically, several recent cheap fakes actually attacked the president for thanking troops. That is what they're attacking the president for. Both in Normandy, this happened, and again in Italy. And I think that it tells you everything that we need to know about how desperate Republicans are here. Instead of talking about the president's performance in office, and what I mean by that is his legislative wins, what he's been able to do for the American people across the country, we're seeing these deep fakes, these manipulated videos, and it is, again, done in bad faith.
That's a deep fake?
So I would love to know how that was faked. How is President Obama leading Biden off the stage, corralling him like a dementia patient, a deep fake? This was a campaign event where they raised $28 million. That footage was filmed by a person who was at the event and shared it to social media. It was not unfilmed by the media. The media was not there. These were filmed by people in the room. And then we played you the video of President Obama sitting there talking with President Biden, and Biden couldn't even put two sentences together.
Right. The media showed the one of the president going up to the Pope and kind of
bashing his head against
molesting his face in a weird way.
Putting his forehead right against the Pope's forehead.
Again, deep fake. That's interesting.
Yeah, I guess it's misinformation. But yeah, again,
she said not what a deep fake is.
I don't think she knows what a deep fake is either. Maybe she was a deep fake
did in the beginning,
saying that.
Yeah, she said cheap fake several times in the beginning, but at the end she said deep fake.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it's both cheap and deep.
Cheap and deep. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. So if you joined us late today, thank you guys so much for subscribing. We really appreciate it. But earlier in the show, because we're live right now, you can go back and watch the beginning of the show once we wrap up here. But we went through in deep detail about this report from the Daily Mail and Congressman Luna that says, President Biden will be replaced on the Democratic ticket. And really, it seems to all come down to the debate performance in about a week on CNN.
Yeah.
So they're sort of either really lowering the expectations, this idea that if his performance is so atrocious against President Trump, that that this will be the announcement. He will hand over the baton to Gavin Newsom, and he will become the Democratic frontrunner. I have so many legal questions though about this, because in order to be on the ballot, you had to have filed to be on the ballot in multiple states all the way back in October of 2023. And there were a number of them that wound up at the end of the year of 2023, like Nevada.
Right.
So you have to be registered on the ballot in those particular areas. So how can Gavin Newsom be able to step in and he hands him the baton and now he's the Democratic ticket, on the Democratic ticket? I don't understand.
They'd have to have like a placeholder because the primaries haven't happened yet, even the Republican primary. So it's like nobody has a candidate. So it'd have to just say like Republican or Democrat candidate.
Yeah, maybe it's just like a placeholder, I suppose. Because
wouldn't it be just like if a vote for Biden would be a vote for Newsom at that point? Like Biden's on the ticket, so you choose Biden,
right?
But you're actually
or next of kin, something like that. That's almost a monarchy.
Yeah.
Whoever I pass it down to.
Yeah. So go back and watch the beginning of the show. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. Thank you for being a part of our community here. What should we mention? Let's mention the newsletter. We have a free newsletter. I would love for you to all subscribe to it. It's the best newsletter to kick off your morning. If you just go to redacted.inc, put in your email address, click on sign up for newsletter, and then you hit submit, you'll receive a welcome email from me, which is just my emails, clayton@redacted.inc. Make sure you drag it over to your inbox. It might go to your spam folder or your dangerous folder. Gmail labels us as dangerous because they don't like the content that we cover here on the show. They want you to be uninformed. So anyway, you need to drag it into your inbox and say, yes, I do want to receive the newsletter. And you'll receive it first thing in the morning, around 7:30, 8 a.m. Eastern time. So you can sign up for the newsletter, cover about 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day. Go to redacted.inc is the place to go. And you will receive it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All right. One more time, we're just going to remind you of the programming note is that because we are relocating the studio, we'll have to be off for about 2 weeks from the live stream. So we will have a live stream tomorrow and then not a live stream for the rest of the week and then for the coming few weeks. But we will have content for you. So please keep coming back to Redacted and we will be back. Wish us luck. Moving is stressful. We're going to do it, and we're going to see you again soon.
That's right. We have a lot of good interviews coming up here for you guys. Really, really good interviews and other content.
A lot of exclusive content. We've worked really hard to save some great stuff for you, and we're going to keep working, and the newsletter will still be live. So stick around. We'll see you soon. See you tomorrow, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.